Hey Chickadees! Welcome back to my channel. Today marks the beginning of a mini-series of book wrap-ups from the past 3 months. Without further ado, let's get started with our first book. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is a memoir about former actress Jeanette McCurdy and her struggles as a child actor with eating disorders, addiction, and her relationship with her mother. As frustrating as this book was at times, I loved how the writing style evolved as she grew up. It starts out sounding very childlike, but as the story progresses, the cadence of her words and sentence structure become more nuanced and adapt to an adult voice. 5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. It's essentially a book within a book, in which we have two timelines trying to explain events that went on in the house both 25 years in the past and in the present. The past timeline represents autofiction Maggie's father wrote, recounting living through supernatural happenings in Banbury Hall. Whereas the present timeline takes place when Maggie goes back to the house to uncover what really happened there. This book reminds me a lot of The Haunting of Hill House show on Netflix, from the fictional narrative of the father's book compared to the reality of the situation, to a character going back to the house years later to confront their past. Although it was a bit cliche at times, I found myself thoroughly enjoying my time reading it. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This book follows divorced couple Yasmin and Josiah as we navigate the reasons behind their divorce and their current lives as parents and restaurant owners. I just love the pining between the two main characters and how they learn to navigate their issues through communication and professional help. Although this book is categorized as contemporary second chance romance, it can get pretty heavy at times. Major trigger warnings for stillbirth, suicide ideation, depression, and passing of a loved one. These are stated in the author's note before you read, so please handle with care if you plan on going into this book. 4.75 out of 5 stars. After two really great books, I read a weird one called How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This one is about two estranged siblings, Louise and Mark, who have to sell their parents' house after their sudden death. But things aren't as they seem, as the house has haunted dolls. Now, I'm not entirely opposed to haunted dolls in horror. I like Child's Play and Annabelle enough, even though they're both really ridiculous, but this book just went off the wall, gory galore bananas for me. As I was reading, I just kept thinking, what the hell am I reading? So it's just not for me. 2.5 out of 5 stars. After that, I read Kiki's Delivery Service by Eiko Kadono. I feel like after How to Sell a Haunted House, I hit a bit of a reading slump because the cozy vibes weren't really hitting. Essentially, this book is a slice of life about a young witch named Kiki and her cat Gigi moving to a coastal town for a year to make a living. Though the movie doesn't follow the book exactly, the cozy vibes are still there. 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I actually started watching the show before I read the book, and it intrigued me enough that I wanted to read the book before I finished the series. But anyways, this is about reporter Camille Preaker being brought back to her hometown of Wind Gap to cover a story about a murder of 2 girls. As she tries to uncover the murders of these girls, so too does she begin to uncover things about her past. Overall, I just thought this book was alright. Her mom and stepsister really got on my nerves at some points. And by the middle of the story, it was so clear who the killer was that as I was approaching the end, I was just waiting to hear what the motive was. 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is a multi-generational book with perspectives from 1619 during the Teresa witch trials, 1942 during World War II, and 2019 in London. It follows the story of 3 women as they learn to connect with their powers to nature and how they overcome the hardships they experienced from the men in their lives. I felt like the author melded the 3 stories together beautifully. Each of the women had their own arc and obstacle to overcome. I especially loved the suspense in Kate's storyline and how she learned to find her voice and embrace the magic within her. 3.75 out of 5 stars. To take a break from the heavy books, I read Spy Family Volume 8. This volume follows Yor as she tries to complete her mission as a bodyguard to a mafia family on a cruise ship, while at the same time trying to avoid Twilight and Anya on the same boat to hide her true job as an assassin. It was pretty exciting to finally get Yor's perspective and the hijinks that ensued as she worked around her family. There were so many chances where she could have been caught, but thanks to Anya's shenanigans, she was able to just barely get away. 4 out of 5 stars. Finally, we have Legends and Lattes. This is a cozy fantasy about a warrior orc who decides to retire and open a coffee shop. And the rest of the book is just a slice of life about her and a couple of friends discovering sweets and new ways to make coffee, in a town that has no idea what coffee is. Sure, she does face some opposition to authority, but it gets quickly resolved in a couple of chapters, so it doesn't really matter in the end. I thought this book was just alright, not as hype as people make it out to be. I thought the characters were a bit one note, like the baker is the shy creative, the barista is the sassy one with the sad past, and the retired warrior whose past keeps coming back to them. And the story got a little bit repetitive, with them discovering new confections, obsessing over it for a few pages, and then sharing it with the public. 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you when I see you. Take care, chickadees.